Her life had been a long battle against assumptions and stereotypes, and this moment threatened to reignite the fire of frustration she had worked so hard to temper. But something else caught her attention, a peculiar energy in the crew. Their glances darted nervously between each other. One clutched his clipboard too tightly. Another fumbled with his phone, and all avoided direct eye contact. This wasn't just ignorance or bias. This was something more. Something deliberate. Something wrong. Imagine having everything you've ever worked for, your wealth, your success, your family's safety, threatened by a powerful criminal organization, all because you dared to stand up for what's right. This isn't just a story of triumph. It's a battle of resilience, courage, and justice against the shadows of corruption and crime. Tonight, we'll dive into the extraordinary journey of a black billionaire who took on a global mafia, protected her family, and emerged victorious. But trust me, this isn't just another tale. It's a gripping saga that will keep you hooked until the very last moment. Before we get started, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join this community of storytellers and truth seekers. Now, buckle up because this story is about to take off. She was a self-made powerhouse, a black businesswoman whose rise to success was nothing short of extraordinary. From humble beginnings, she had built an empire, a legacy of resilience, intelligence, and sheer determination. On this day, she arrived at the private airport with quiet confidence, dressed in understated elegance, ready to board her private jet for a high-stakes meeting that could redefine her career. The morning was crisp, the air buzzing with the promise of progress. Her jet stood ahead, gleaming like a symbol of her hard-earned triumph. Her assistant followed closely behind, the hum of efficiency evident in every step they took. But as they approached the jet, a shift in the atmosphere was palpable. The crew stood in a semicircle near the steps, their postures stiff, their smiles forced. The head of the crew stepped forward, his voice steady but laced with something off-putting. "Ma'am, there seems to be a mistake. This jet is not available for you today." The assistant froze, visibly confused, but her boss remained calm, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Not available? This is my jet." She spoke with authority, but her voice carried the edge of disbelief. The crew hesitated, their smiles faltering. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there must be an error. You don't appear to be the owner." Subtle but unmistakable, the implication hung in the air. With suspicion tightening its grip, she stood firm, pulling out her ownership documents with the precision of someone who had fought too many battles to be dismissed. "This jet is mine," she declared, her voice unwavering. "I've owned it for years, and here's the proof." The crew didn't flinch. Instead, they doubled down, hiding behind the guise of a system error. "There must be a mistake," they insisted, their words hollow, their excuses thin. But their act was unraveling. Her sharp gaze dissected their every move. One crew member fumbled with his phone, sneaking glances at the screen, typing hurriedly as if the weight of their plan depended on secrecy. Another cast anxious looks toward a hangar in the distance, as though waiting for something or someone. This wasn't just racism. This was calculated, something far more sinister, and it reeked of desperation. Yet, she didn't raise her voice or demand answers. Instead, she did what she always did when cornered. She calculated her next move. Stepping aside, she pulled out her phone and called her legal team, her tone calm but commanding. "Something isn't right. I need you to look into this jet's records immediately." As her team began their work, she returned her attention to the crew. The weight of her presence hung in the air, a stark contrast to their growing unease. She knew one thing for certain. Whatever game they were playing, it was about to end. Her phone buzzed with the call she had been waiting for. On the other end, her legal team delivered the news, their voices laced with urgency. Her jet, her property, had been illegally rented out to a mysterious third party. The layers of deception ran deep, shielded by a labyrinth of shell companies. But one thing was certain. The jet was being used for illegal purposes. The revelation sent a jolt through her. She turned back to the crew, her eyes steely, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Explain this." She laid out the evidence with precision, her calm exterior masking the storm inside her. The crew, now visibly cornered, stammered and faltered. Under her relentless gaze, they cracked. One finally confessed, "We were bribed. Someone paid us to keep you away from the jet for 24 hours." They refused to disclose who, only alluding to valuable cargo on board. Her frustration ignited into something sharper: determination. This was no longer just about her jet. It was about justice. She immediately contacted law enforcement, relaying every detail her team had uncovered. Her evidence, combined with her resolve, set the wheels of a larger plan into motion. Together, they devised a strategy to expose whoever thought they could exploit her property and dismiss her presence. What had started as a confrontation rooted in bias had evolved into the unraveling of a criminal operation. She wasn't just fighting for herself now. She was preparing to dismantle something far bigger. With precision and resolve, she became the architect of her own justice. Working hand in hand with law enforcement, she set the trap. The plan was simple yet bold. Allow the illegal operation to proceed while every move of the jet was meticulously tracked. Her property would become the bait, and the criminals would never see it coming. The jet departed under the watchful eyes of the authorities, its flight path monitored in real time. The air was thick with anticipation as law enforcement prepared to intercept. Mid-flight, the trap was sprung. A tactical team closed in, boarding the jet with precision, catching the smugglers in the act. What they uncovered was more than a crime. It was a network, a major criminal syndicate smuggling contraband across borders. The investigation revealed a chilling strategy. The syndicate deliberately targeted private jets owned by black individuals, banking on racial profiling to avoid detection. They assumed that people like her would lack the power or resources to uncover the truth. They assumed wrong. The operation ended with the smugglers in handcuffs, the cargo seized, and the syndicate exposed. Her jet, now cleared of its shadowy use, was returned to her. But this wasn't just a personal victory. It was a statement, a dismantling of the prejudices and assumptions that criminals had counted on. Though the plane was hers again, the fight was far from over. This was no longer just a battle for her dignity. It was a mission to ensure no one else would be exploited in the same way. The story ignited a firestorm. Within hours, the details of the sting operation and the woman's defiant stand against both crime and systemic racism went viral. News outlets across the globe picked up the story, hailing her courage and unyielding resolve. Social media became a battleground of support, hashtags trending worldwide, demanding accountability in the luxury and aviation industries. This wasn't just about a jet. It became a rallying cry against the deep-rooted biases that enabled criminals to exploit racial profiling. Her face, her name, her story became symbols of empowerment, of what it meant to fight back when every odd was stacked against her. But she didn't stop at the headlines. Rather than basking in the glow of her victory, she channeled her platform into action. Partnering with advocacy groups, she launched initiatives for stricter regulations in private aviation, ensuring every owner, regardless of race, was protected from exploitation. Her efforts demanded accountability from an industry that had too often turned a blind eye to discrimination. In her own words, she reflected, "This wasn't just about me or my jet. It was about standing up to the systems that perpetuate injustice. If we don't challenge these biases, they'll continue to hurt others who don't have the resources to fight back." She boards her jet once more, this time with a carefully selected crew who respect and value her. As the engines roar to life, the plane ascends into the sky. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The sting operation had dismantled a critical arm of the smuggling syndicate, but it had also awakened a beast. Unknown to her at first, the criminal organization wasn't just a loose network. It was part of a global mafia with deep roots in the underworld. Their power stretched across continents, and their influence infiltrated industries. By exposing their operation, she had not only humiliated them, but also disrupted a lucrative business. Retaliation was inevitable. It started subtly. Anonymous threats slipped through her public channels. Emails with vague warnings, strange cars parked near her office, and unmarked packages left at her estate. But she wasn't the kind to fold under pressure. She immediately reinforced her personal security, hiring a top-tier team of former intelligence operatives and cybersecurity experts. Her home became a fortress, her movements shadowed by a protective detail, trained to anticipate danger before it struck. But the mafia didn't care for subtlety for long. Their warnings escalated. Late one night, a convoy of black SUVs circled her property, their headlights cutting through the darkness like predators stalking their prey. It was a message, one that could not be ignored. She knew then that this fight wasn't over. She reached out to the federal agents who had assisted with the sting, forging an alliance to bring down this syndicate once and for all. The mafia, emboldened by their rage, escalated further. They targeted her Achilles heel, her only daughter, a vibrant young woman with a promising future. She had always been shielded from her mother's struggles. But the mafia's plans were merciless. One evening, as her daughter returned from a charity event, the unthinkable happened. A van intercepted her car, blocking it off on a secluded street. Masked men with weapons forced the driver out, grabbing her before she could even scream. But what the mafia hadn't counted on was the security detail, trailing her at all times. A black SUV pulled up moments later, and her mother's elite operatives engaged in a tactical rescue. Shots were fired, tires screeched, and within minutes, her daughter was safe, though shaken to her core. One of the kidnappers was captured alive, providing a critical lead. The woman was livid. The mafia had crossed a line, and now it was personal. Her daughter was moved to a secure location, and the businesswoman doubled down on her efforts. She worked tirelessly with federal agents, utilizing every resource at her disposal to track down the mafia's leaders. She even brought in private investigators to infiltrate the organization, turning their own tactics against them. The investigation culminated in a chilling revelation. The mafia's leader, a shadowy figure known only as Vincenzo, was orchestrating these attacks from an overseas stronghold. The businesswoman, alongside law enforcement, orchestrated an elaborate operation to dismantle the mafia's infrastructure. Using her financial influence and global connections, she set a trap. Posing as a wealthy investor, she lured Vincenzo's inner circle into a meeting under the guise of striking a lucrative deal. The meeting was held in a private villa, every inch wired with surveillance. As the mafia members boasted about their power and gloated over their failed kidnapping attempt, law enforcement moved in. The raid was swift and decisive. Vincenzo was apprehended, along with his top lieutenants, and a trove of evidence was uncovered, enough to dismantle their operations across several countries. Back home, she addressed the press, standing tall and fearless. "This isn't just about protecting my family or my business. It's about sending a message. No one, no matter how powerful, can intimidate those who stand for what's right." With the mafia dismantled, she could finally breathe. But this ordeal had changed her. She established a foundation dedicated to supporting victims of organized crime and promoting security for high-profile individuals, particularly women and minorities. Her daughter, inspired by her mother's resilience, joined the effort, ensuring their legacy of strength and justice endured. And there you have it, the story of a woman who stood against a global mafia and won. A story of resilience, courage, and justice. If this story inspired you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Join me for more stories of power, justice, and inspiration. Together, we can uncover tales that empower and ignite change.